Hey, you wonderful people. I hope you're all having a wonderful time this holiday season and staying warm in these cold, cold times. I'm Wondrous Lantern, and I'm going to talk about Bethesda and their business model, game design mentality, and some of the controversies they've faced. Mostly it's going to be about their game design mentality, but hopefully I can dive deeper into other avenues surrounding the company. Before I continue, I'd like to clarify that it stings my gamer soul because I was a staunch supporter of Bethesda. For me, they could do no wrong. Morrowind was absolutely solidified in my adolescence. I remember watching a friend's dad play it, and I was so intrigued because I had never seen any RPG do what Morrowind did, with 3D rendered models, an open world, a menu that lets you see your character when you change out inventory items. Seriously, something I'm sad that they don't do in their future Elder Scrolls titles, and much, much more. Then I remember playing Oblivion, and of course, the game that seems to stand the test of time, Skyrim. I also played Fallout 3 around when it was first released, then New Vegas, etc, etc. I've noticed that certain Bethesda titles, especially those within their two heavy hitter franchises, Elder Scrolls and Fallout, I would get something I call Bethesda syndrome. Essentially what would happen is I would start to play these new titles when they would release for about a week or two. Then I put the game down for months, either due to mental fatigue or just not loving the game, then coming back and no-lifing them, and just falling in love with them. They're not bad games, and they're some of the most entertainment I've received when it comes to the open world RPG genre. With that said, I do have to address the behemoth mutant in the room. Their game design is a hit or miss. I'm not saying they make bad games in a sense, but I do feel and understand the stance some have when it comes to their outdated game design. It's most notable when you're playing one of these games, especially their newer ones, and that familiar creeping thought comes in. I could be playing one of their other games instead. The best way I can say this is their games, though fun and entertaining to a degree, come across like skins slapped on a game engine or skins slapped on a framework of similar or shared game mechanics. You've heard it before, the common phrase of Fallout is just Skyrim with guns, or Skyrim is just fantasy Fallout, or Starfield is just Skyrim or Fallout in space, and so on and so forth. Does this automatically make their games bad? No. But this can be a negative within certain contexts. When I first started Starfield, I was excited and happy that I was finally playing a new Bethesda game and within a genre that's close to my heart, sci-fi space exploration. Now, this excitement didn't necessarily dwindle fast, nor did its disappearance ruin my experience, but I did get to a point when I definitely felt like I was just playing a Fallout 4 mod due to the gunplay and movement mechanics. Then there were certain things within the game that felt unfinished, or exceptionally inferior when put next to other game standards. Now, I don't support the idea that you should compare everything to other things, but I do see comparison as a valuable tool within competitive markets, and gaming fits into that equation. Game devs must use comparisons to gauge what works and what doesn't work, what to work on and what not to work on, where a project's focus should be and where it shouldn't be, and so on and so forth. One example of this was the base building in Starfield. As someone who loves crafting and building, I felt it was a complete letdown. The more I delved into that part of the game, the more I realized that it was limiting. Almost all of the storage mechanics for my base didn't work properly, material costs or their complexity for certain items felt odd, and networking between the bases seemed far too complex for what I was trying to do. And I know I'm not the only one here who feels this way because I looked up tutorials and forums and posts for help with thousands of views or comments. That's just one example. It felt like a step back from what we got from Fallout 4's building mechanics. As clunky or off-putting as they were for some, there's no denying that they seemed more fleshed out than what Starfield offered, which is a shame because there were parts of the building in Starfield I really wanted to enjoy. Also, it felt meaningless or pointless. I know there were sparks across the internet for people's dislike for Fallout 4's pushed building, and that it tied into some of the story quests, and that it somehow ruins the game. But I actually disagree with that assessment. For starters, I was never stumped or felt like it was a major drag on my experience to just go out and explore for some materials in order to build one thing for my base for a quest because I would have been out exploring and looting anyways. It also made the bases feel more important and like the world was more lived in because they were essentially a survivor's network that you built from the ground up. For what goal or purpose is up to your playstyle, but they still had their purpose within the game's structure. In Starfield, I never really felt that in regards to the building. There were many times when I actually felt it would have been more of a chore to just jump to my bases, or I would outright forget I even had bases. I never really felt like I needed them. The game continued to run smoothly without them, and sure, that's not necessarily a negative for those who don't like building, but I would have enjoyed a little bit more implementation within the game's story. This whole argument that Fallout 4 was bogged down by the building feels like people are being disingenuous, because it wasn't like every mission or every other mission required you to do base building, and like I've said before, the requirements to build something were already wrapped around a core playstyle within the open world genre, exploring and looting. Things we all would be doing regardless if we had to build something back at base or not. I never really felt that with Starfield. Bethesda is generally great with certain RPG aspects in gaming, from making certain areas or NPCs feel real or like you're actually committing to something as a player, but they seem to lack in other areas that other game devs have surpassed them on. Bethesda is in a dangerous spot where they need to play catch-up in order to even try and compete in today's market. What really boggles my mind is that Bethesda is known for making worlds feel lived in or giving players a want and need to explore. However, that's not the case in Starfield. I've heard arguments before about how Fallout 3 felt empty or their other games felt empty, but either I played a different copy of those games and Starfield, or these people are trying to reshape things to fit their narrative. Also, context matters. The world of Fallout isn't supposed to feel like some lived-in world where you'll run into some friendly NPC at every turn. Even if the argument is made that this is what Bethesda was going for on most of the worlds in Starfield, I'd still say that I never once felt like Fallout 3 or 4 or any of their titles felt like they were empty. Empty in the way that these people are saying. I could be wandering around and almost always run into something every 30 seconds to a minute. From enemies trying to ambush me, a building or area asking to be explored, to quest-giving NPCs.
This one needs something?
Mostly in the Elder Scrolls titles for this one. You get the idea. That was most of the experience when it comes to the open world aspect of their games. There was almost always something to catch my eye or attention and made me feel like I wanted to go and explore. Even in those moments when I could relax and take in the moment, the music, the atmosphere, the visuals, all made for some great moments. As far as Starfield is considered, I really never felt those moments.
What?
Sure, there were times when I could explore and find something, but those times were few and far between, meaning I usually had to go out of my way in directions I knew people were going to be, or I would just stumble upon them by luck, and the time it would take to reach these were way too far between than what I've experienced in games like Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, etc. I remember there was a time when I went out to see how far I could explore, and I came across around 5 or 6 caves. The first one had me excited, and my loot goblin nature started to emerge.
Look at little Goblin Jr.
I smell pennies!
But there was nothing. No loot, no enemies, no people, not even rocks to mine. I shrugged it off, thinking that the next one will definitely have something. It happened for every cave I explored. There weren't data pads to pick up and read, no enemies to fight. There was nothing. I'd continued to explore and saw a ship land in the distance. My excitement peaked again, and I hauled my butt all the way over to the ship. Inaccessible.
Wait a minute. Disappointed!
This would happen almost every single time I'd go out to explore. Then it really hit me hard when I realized I'd rather just be playing one of their older games, because at least in those games, I could find areas worth my time without fail. That's what I'm trying to get at. Their game design isn't just outdated, but in some aspects it feels like they're going backwards. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't sitting there the whole time.
Disappointed!
There were actual moments that I enjoyed, and let's not look over their ship designing mechanic. That was a really fun, and I'd say I'd probably spend an equal amount of time, if not more, in the ship designer. Sure, No Man's Sky just released Corvette building, but as someone who's delved deeply in both ship designing mechanics for both games, I can confidently say there are pros and cons to both, though I find the pros more in favor for No Man's Sky's Corvette building. The ability to move all parts easily so you can add layers, like lift it off the ground or move it forward or backward for additional add-ons. More customization when it comes to technology modules, like reactors, shields, etc., meaning that you have more to select from within those categories. Easily upgrading modules through a purchase system rather than having to manually remove ship parts to access the technology module you wish to swap out for a better model. That's pretty much it. These pros are great, and I especially wish for No Man's Sky to integrate a hold all option in the future so you can move your whole Corvette forward or backward, up and down with ease. But here's why I feel the ship designers feel very different as far as playing goes. Actually playing in your ship.
Oh my gosh.
I spend most of my time in or around my ship in No Man's Sky, from wandering the stars to traversing planets, especially now after being able to build my own ship from the ground up. There's just a cool feeling for me when I'm flying around in something I built. It reaches down into my psyche deeply seated in my childhood, when I was a young boy who built my own Lego ships and imagined flying my own one day. The days of youth. Anyways, I feel like this was such a missed opportunity for Bethesda to implement better space exploration, with things like manually landing on planets.
You see, in this expansive space game, you can't actually land,
manually taking off from planets,
or take off on planets like you think you could.
So it's basically just skyboxes in front of the planet? Oh man.
You can't actually even travel between those planets in space!
more space anomalies.
I think we're getting closer. Doesn't look like we're getting closer to this. Are we there yet?
Instead, there's the much more immersive loading screen.
And structures to explore. Those are just a few off the top of my head. There's actually a short I saw on YouTube and from CohhShorts, sorry man if I'm butchering that name, but essentially talks about another aspect of the shipbuilding that I genuinely did not like in Starfield, and I'll just let him explain it.
One thing that I think is so absolutely asininely dumb is that they 100% arbitrarily assign the ship components you can buy to your character level. It is one of the things of this game that is just completely unimmersive. It makes no sense. If you have the money, you should be able to buy it. So why does your character level factor into anything you can buy for your ship?
Well said, man. Well said. And I'm going to add something else on here, just for the people out there if they're going to try and counter with, well, certain things should be blocked or restricted and give you some type of incentive to grow. Yes, I understand that. I totally understand a system where certain things should have restrictions on them, but I don't think that that should be a primary thing on most of the parts that you can purchase in this game. That was one of the issues that I had with the game, because anytime I wanted to go and explore more and do something cooler with my ship, it was always blocked by something. So, I don't know, just my little take. Now on to the combat. I even fight more in my ship in No Man's Sky than I ever did in Starfield. I'm not joking. I could probably count on both hands how many times I actually had to engage in space combat for Starfield. Sure, the ship fighting is more in depth and can feel more intense than No Man's Skies at times, which is awesome, but I feel like I just never really got to feel that very much during my time in Starfield. There were even times I begged the game for just some pirates or ships to come out of nowhere and start fighting me, but it almost never happened.
I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me.
When it did, I felt that empty aspect again, because I'd fight off a bunch of pirates, disable their ship, and either be told that their ship is inaccessible, or I could board and would never be able to fly it. That's not good to do in your space exploration RPG, because when something happens like those moments constantly, it can really wear down the player, and it can shatter the illusion of choice within an RPG structure. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when setting limitations is a necessary thing to do for your games, especially if you're trying to give players incentives to grow, but those incentives have to have payoffs. Even when I got to a point when I should be able to pilot any ship, there were still ships that wouldn't let me fly or, again, were inaccessible.
Bethesda.
Can't keep getting away with it.
Bethesda.
Can't keep getting away with it.
This was a major issue for me because I always questioned exactly why they would do this. Personally, I would have taken cookie cutter repeat interiors over nothing. I know some have criticized other games for doing this very thing, like Dragon Age 2's infamous dungeon layouts. However, I think the context differs significantly here. In Dragon Age 2, it's laughable because the dungeons are all supposed to be underground or in caves or in areas separated from one another, and yet they all shared identical interiors, which shattered the cave diving dungeon crawler illusion. As for Starfield, usually you'd come across ships of similar or identical designs, so it would make sense for an interior to be similar or identical. All you'd really need to do is implement a randomized chest placement mechanic so they could feel different and give players an urge to explore, lest they leave behind something they could have missed. Then we should, when unlocking rank 4 of piloting, be able to fly any of these ships. Giving us an inaccessible text for practically most of the ships is a letdown, and I can't be the only one who sees this. Alright, enough about Starfield, but I hope I've made some good points. Now, to add more fuel onto the game design mentality fire, I'd like to throw in Fallout 76. Yes, that Fallout 76.
16 times the detail.
The one marred with a terrible launch and scummy business practices that have made Bethesda go from a reputable company to a criticized laughingstock. You see, this one really hurts me as a huge Fallout fan and someone who really wanted to see a Fallout multiplayer succeed. Here's an issue though. In any of the circles I was part of during the development stages of 76, I heard we all wanted to be able to have the Fallout experience, but with our friends. But game devs seem to think that multiplayer equals MMO, which it doesn't. We weren't talking about wanting an MMO experience set in the world of Fallout. We were talking about something I like to call a closed multiplayer experience. A closed multiplayer experience is a more controlled, smaller group experience. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with MMOs, but I don't really think it was on most people's bingo cards regarding a multiplayer experience for Fallout. For starters, I don't think that an MMO fits the world of Fallout. Sure, Bethesda can do whatever they want with their IPs, much like I'm free to set all my clothes on fire, but that doesn't really make it a good decision now, does it? Secondly, I believe the decision to make Fallout 76 an MMO is one of the many reasons for the company's issues for the game's development and progress. From what I hear and read, maintaining an MMO is more taxing and time-consuming than any other multiplayer experience. There has to be server maintenance and player info maintenance, both time-consuming in their own right, something they messed up. And remember, this is Bethesda we're talking about here. Patching out bugs and game-breaking things is par for the course for a day one purchase. Add those into the list of things that hurt 76's development. Also, an MMO is not as contained mechanically as other multiplayer experiences, so the team's focus was stretched thin and more things needed to be delegated. There are plenty of great videos out there that cover the disastrous development of Fallout 76, like Internet Historian's The Fall of 76, so I'd implore you to check those out for more information and details. They're funny and entertaining, and videos I endorse. What's interesting about Fallout 76 and the empty map debate is considered, I'm being honest when I say that 76, much like Starfield, felt emptier than other maps within the Fallout franchise. I will admit, not to Starfield's degree, but as far as player connection and purpose is considered, the map felt empty. Sure, I would find sites and places to explore, and I would encounter the occasional enemy, but there were a lot of moments where I thought, I wish something would show up, or I wish this place actually had something. There were some sites that were letdowns for me because they looked like they would have had at least a boss, or some great loot, or some really cool lore, but they were either empty or just full of the same generic enemies I fought over and over again only a minute before. I'm going to extend an olive branch here and say that I haven't actually dipped my toes back into Fallout 76 for years, and the last I played was right after the Wastelanders update, but that doesn't negate the fact that the company still faces backlash from the controversial business practices. Oh boy. Now we're going to talk about something I personally find scummy or irritating when it comes to video game practices. I've never been a fan of subscription services unless they're implemented morally, ethically, and actually make sense for the context of the game's default pricing. It's understandable for certain free-to-play games to implement monetization practices for the company to earn money for their work. but I don't like forcing a purchase for a base game than implementing a subscription service like what Bethesda did with Fallout First. Here's a list from Bethesda's site regarding what you get if you subscribe to Fallout First. Private Adventure. Play in a private adventure exclusively for you and up to 7 friends. This is what should have been in the base game, especially considering that you still have to pay for the base game, $29.99, from all the buy links from their site, from Steam, Xbox One, PlayStation, and Xbox on PC. Hey, those of you lucky to have it on PlayStation or in the PlayStation Store, you get an offer. Save 75%, but you need to act fast because this offer ends on the 23rd of this month. Hopefully if I get this video out on time. Custom Worlds. Create your own Appalachia with custom worlds and invite your friends. Again, this is something that should have been in the base game. I guarantee you it would have garnered a lot of support. Scrapbox. Unlimited storage for crafting components in your own new Scrapbox container. Survival Tent. A new placeable fast travel point with a stash, sleeping bag, and more for your basic needs. This one kind of confuses me because if I remember correctly, when I played, I was able to fast travel to my camp anyways. Perhaps the survival tent acts as another fast travel point for those who wish to travel away from their camp? That's probably the case. Anyways, atoms. Receive 1,650 atoms per month to use in the atomic shop. Ah yes, you get a restricted currency that you can only use in the infamous atomic shop. Ranger Armor Outfit, an iconic Fallout outfit exclusively for members. Kinda sad that they butchered the NCR for their Amazon show, so the very thing they think is cool enough to have as an exclusive skin is also tarnished by their canon Amazon show. Icons and Emotes pack, unique icons and emotes available only to members. This is a given for an MMO or similar genres. Cosmetics, unique cosmetics available only to members. This is good. I can get behind cosmetics and such. Fallout First Season Pass. Gain access to the Fallout First Season Pass. I guess there's a seasonal system put in place where you get exclusive content for that season with this Season Pass. Ammo Box. Unlimited storage for the stackable ammo in your own ammo storage box container. Note, fusion cores and plasma cores cannot be stored in the ammo box. Oh yeah, we can't have you storing those in the exclusive box. You need to spend... Wait, what was the price again? Oh yeah, $12.99 a month or $99.99 a year. Yeah, just ridiculous. I find it funny that the Steam reviews for this garbage as of December of 2025 are mostly negative. Before anyone wants to comment that I'm only looking at the recent reviews, only 28% of the 21 recent reviews were positive and 41% of the 1,348 reviews in my language, which is English if you couldn't tell, are positive. Both numbers are less than half. Those aren't good numbers. Also, I love that the top positive comment is just someone giving people the steps necessary to cancel their subscription through Steam. That's just great. I love it. Alright, it's no mystery that Bethesda faced a lot of terrible things during the aftermath of Fallout 76's launch, from health hazard helmets to deceptive price marketing to borderline false advertisement. Oh hey, look at that, they now actually have it in a glass bottle and at a pretty decent price. Well, wouldn't you know? To terrible handling of those who abuse the game system and much, much more. I think this was the start of the downfall for them because they revealed certain parts of their integrity or lack thereof when it comes to how they value their customers. Actions speak louder than words, and no amount of PR speech or polite words are going to undo what has been done. The only things that can are actions. We need to start holding these companies responsible for their lackluster, backwards approach to game development, especially when they charge what they charge of your hard-earned money. This isn't a video to try and get people to hate Bethesda. This is so we can actually start to question the business practices of the overpriced games we purchase. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of hearing the excuses for failed launches by either the company giving some lame PR speech.
This is strictly mobile forever.
The current plan is to be on mobile, both Android and iOS. We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Or from fans championing for their favorite developers making excuses for them. You deserve better. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed my little rant regarding Bethesda and some of the things that they're doing that are either stagnant or backwards. Trust me, I'm a fan, and I want to see them return to form, but in order to grow, one must realize one needs to grow. That's the first step. As for my other video ideas, I'm still working on a Star Wars Acolyte Episode 1 breakdown video. I also have plans to do another Green Lantern video down the line about John Lee. When will those videos be out? Your guess is as good as mine. I did shoot for the Acolyte video to be released sometime before the year's end, but I don't think that's happening anymore. This time of year is way too busy for me. From many birthdays to Christmas to New Year's, and it doesn't help that I was sick for some part of November. So stay tuned for more videos. I hope you all enjoy your holidays, and remember, stay wonderful. Bethesda, we were this close. We were so close to having a great sci-fi game in your style. You make races and species and all your other games, from ghouls and Fallout, Khajiit and Argonians and elves and the Elder Scrolls, and you focused on humans in your sci-fi. What a mess.